welcome to the land of the Darug and Gundungurra. We're here overlooking the Jamison Valley in the Blue Mountains National Park. I want to share a few of the stories here that were shared to me by an uncle. Now, where this uncle grew up is a little place known as the Gully. It's very important for our people. It was where the last of the Darug and probably the Gundungurra were living on their country rent-free. It was a little shanty town that was formed when Katoomba was turning into a township, and there's beautiful descriptions. The old people talk about how lovely it was growing up there as children. As Auntie Joan used to say too, there was no Darug and Gundungurra back then. We were all just one mob and that. But they were bulldozed out of their homes in 1958, so not long ago. They can still point to where they used to live, a lot of the old people here. But before that happened, some of the stories were shared, and the story I'm going to share with you is about the three sisters here, and it involves 7 sisters. Now, I'll tell you the story and I'll tell you why the 7 sisters is significant. The story goes, there was a man who had 7 daughters. A young man has heard about this, and he's come to get a wife. Now, in the old days, you couldn't marry who you wanted. There were certain women you were allowed to marry, others you couldn't. And the man, when he's come up here, 3 of those 7 girls were lawful for him. He was allowed to marry them. So he's asked the father for one of these girls. The father, however, when he hears the young man's name, steps back shaking his head. No way. Now, he's heard of this man by reputation. The man has a reputation as a cruel man. No father wants his daughter going off with a cruel man, tells the boy to pack up his boomerang and go home. Anyway, the young fellow has come a long way to get a wife. He is furious at a refusal and takes his club out and attacks the father. So shortly into the fight, the father is knocked to the ground. Realising that the young man is stronger and fitter than he is, he picks up some clay. He sings magic over the clay and hurls it at the 3 girls to turn them to stone to protect them, which it does. But shortly after, the young man is kills the old fellow with his club, and the girls are stuck as stone. Now the other 4 sisters, they see their father killed, they see their sisters turned to stone, they scream and start to run, which is when the young fellow proves himself a cruel man. He thinks, as those girls run off, well, if I can't have them for wives, no one will. So he also bends down, picks up the clay, sings magic over it, hurls it at the girls and turns them to stone as well. So you'll see the 3 sisters there that everyone sees. If you look to the right of the younger sister there, you'll see a pile of stone and another pile near it. And these are the remnants of 2 of the other sisters. Down the bottom, covered by the tree line there, are a whole bunch of boulders that the old people tell us are the rest of the sisters. So this is our local 7 sister story. Why I get really excited about sharing that is that right around Australia you'll find 7 sister stories, Aboriginal 7 sister stories. They've got them up to Kimberley's, got them in Queensland, Victoria, they're all round. Very often these women will turn to stone or trees. More often than not, though, they end up as a particular star system. In the Sydney language we know there's Jinburi. Jin's our word for woman. There's a woman's association with that, stars. But turns out that not only does Aboriginal Australia have those stories, that star system the rest of the world probably knows better as the Pleiades. Turns out the ancient Greeks had a story about that same star system. Not just 7 women, 7 sisters being pursued across the sky by the hunter Orion. So now I share that story up at Echo Point. I get people from China telling me they've got 7 sister stories there. They've got them in Dover in England, in the Americas, Hawaii. They're all around the world. So I often leave it to people to reflect whether that story was so important. People got on bark canoes and paddled it across the ocean, or whether maybe a way back we come from a common culture. And that one, I like that one better. Okay, so I'm going to share one of the stories about Mount Solitary. Now this one was written down and recorded in a book, but it's the Gundungurra story. It's usually for them to tell, but if Gundungurra was here, I'd throw it over to them. Because this story involves, I think they call him Midji, and he's the sky spirit. And in a lot of the stories in Blue Mountains, the stories are told about the Dark Ones. The Dark Ones are figures that were told to children that they had to watch for because they'd snaggle them and eat them. And they pop up in a lot of stories. But they're the creature that you had to watch if you were away from the campfire. So the kids, don't go too far from the campfire. The dark ones will get you. Don't go to the back of water holes or the back of caves. The dark ones get you. The deep water holes, the dark ones will get you. And so I think so that they don't have nightmares their entire life, they eventually get around telling this story. And this one involves the formation of this valley. And it's said that the Sky Spirit stood where Mount Solitary is now, and had a massive fight with the Dark Ones. He's ripped up a tree, turned it upside down, used it as a club, and crashed it over their heads in this almighty fight. And the story is that where the club has crashed down has made the dents in the valley, it has formed a valley around there. And of course where the Sky Spirit stood, that's remaining there still. So this big valley is formed by a massive battle between the Sky Spirit and the Dark Ones. Again, most people come up here, miss that, they're busy taking photos of the sisters, which is good, but miss this big story in the background. This one here is one of the beautiful Waratah stories from up here. Now, I explain to people, I've heard about 4 or 5 different Waratah stories. This one relates, or it's the same elements as the one that we still have as the Bible story down the river. The story up here goes of a man who had kangaroo skin stolen from his hut. Now, in those days, we didn't have a police force. Once you passed through law, you enacted and enforced the law. So the man has seen the tracks of the thief, he's grabbed a spear and a club and trekked off after him. He's followed him through the bush and that, and caught up with him eventually at the foot of the waterfall down there, a clearing at the bottom, and he's met up, but as he's tracked the man, he's seen he's actually joined by a number of other footprints. So by the time he gets down there, there's about 5 or 6 of them down there. And he demands his skins back, but the fella there that took them has all his brothers around him, and he's not giving them back. So a fight breaks out, and the fella that has them stolen ends up slaying every one of these men in this fight. We've still got a couple of details from that story that the second last fella is impaled on his own spear shaft. The last fella from them standing started to run. Old mate his club's broken at this time, but he uses it like a boomerang and hurls it at him and takes him out that way. But then after he's dispatched all these men, he's checked himself and he's standing in his own blood. He didn't realise it, and there's all these wounds that he's got in the fight that he didn't know about, but they're fatal wounds. He checks them out and they're so bad he actually collapses on the spot and dies. In a lot of these Waratah stories though, there's a female that features, and she's interested in this man, but he's not ready for a wife yet, so she often just follows him from afar or loves him from a distance. In the stories to the south, she turns into a Waratah on a ledge waiting for a man to come back from battle, which he never does. In this story, this woman follows this man, and when she finally follows his tracks to the bottom of the waterfall, she finds him dead amongst all these other corpses. She's very upset, so she's crying over this man's body. She looks up in the cliff there and she sees the white Waratah growing. And the white Waratah was said to be made for this valley. The Sky Spirit is said to have loved walking the cliff tops here, and this valley here is one of his favourite little areas, so he's made the Waratah as a gift for it. It's made from it's the colour of the moon and the wax of the native bees. Beautiful flower. When she's crying over the man, she sees that flower and she climbs up to pick it to put it on the man's chest, which she does. But apparently the spirit's not happy with that or something, because this whirlwind comes into the valley, lifts the Waratah off the man's chest and then bursts into all these bits and pieces. Where the bits of the white Waratah land in the slain warrior's blood. Next spring up comes the Waratah again, but this time red for the first time. And that's our local Waratah story. Well, they're just some of the stories that are kept in the landscape here to share. I'd like to thank you for asking for me to share them. That's what I love doing, and I think it's important. There's lessons in those stories. So I'll just say Yano, which is goodbye, and Yana Bujrimuru, which is walk the good walk.